That just happened.
Hello everyone, once again from the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, and today I thought I'd do something a bit different. We're going to be doing a movie review. Now, I'm not just going to be doing the movie review, I do want to build up some context before we talk about it and talk about some politics stuff afterwards. But you guys might have seen like a short clip of a Michael Knowles film going viral where he plays a gay character. And a lot of people have been sharing this one clip, haven't talked about like the whole movie. So you can actually find the whole movie on YouTube. It's 15 minutes long and I've watched it and I've made a lot of notes on it and we're going to talk about it. Sadly, it has a lot of licensed music, so I can't actually play you all the scenes I wanted to, but I'm going to play you the scenes that are relevant and I'm going to show you a fair bit of the movie, I hope. And I just want to talk about it in the terms of the hypocrisy of someone like Michael Knowles previously playing a gay character in a movie and pushing rhetoric that is extremely anti-LGBT. And of course, recently he's been in controversy for basically calling for the eradication of transgenderism, which he says is actually different from people being transgender. But if you get rid of whatever transgenderism is, do trans people still exist, Michael Knowles? He's also just like a typical like far-right American Catholic. It's funny to see this film where he plays an explicitly gay character, including doing scenes which are pretty sexual in nature, and he has no problem with that. And could you be a conservative and have no problem doing that? Yeah, of course you could. Could you be a conservative who spends all day spouting like really hateful anti-gay and anti-LGBT propaganda for the Daily Wire and be okay with that? You know, I don't really know. So it plays into my larger view that a lot of these people like Michael Knowles, Brett Cooper, when they fail in Hollywood, when they fail at acting, they do something else. They play a conservative character for the Daily Wire. Now, of course, I do actually believe that Michael Knowles isn't lying about every single thing he says, but I do know there is a ton of money in right-wing media. So at the same time, I can imagine that even if he was more conservative, he can still say a lot of things he does for money because a lot of these people are grifters. And I think with the Steven Crowder versus Daily Wire thing, it just reveals how much money there is in conservative media. Like a guy being offered $50 million to join the Daily Wire, and people like Michael Knowles and others must be on pretty good salaries as well. I am going to try and review the film by its own merits, but then just talk about like, if Michael Knowles was in a film like this today, how would his own audience react to him? What would his audience say? And we actually have a nice parallel at the moment. We saw how conservatives, including Michael Knowles' own boss, Ben Shapiro, reacted to seeing a gay love story on screen in The Last of Us TV show. So I also just want to talk a little bit about that. So before we go any further, please like the video and in the comments let me know your thoughts. Also follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter, but also on Instagram. Instagram is where I'm posting about my travels around Southeast Asia, and everything I've posted is archived on my highlight reels on my profile page. So if you care about any of that stuff, go check it out. Also, I've posted some exclusive travel content on my Patreon page, and you also get access to the Discord server and my Nintendo Switch friend code. I'm trying to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible. If you care about any of that stuff, go check out the Patreon page and check out my subreddit and check out my second channel. All of those things are down in the description. So Daily Wire is of course notorious for being extremely bigoted against the LGBT community, and of course Michael Knowles recently, like I said, got into a lot of drama for his comments on transgenderism. But I just want to show you a bit of this video called Massive Spike in People Going Gay in New Poll by Michael Knowles from like a year ago. And I just thought it's interesting because he's talking about like why people might be identifying as gay. But I think he also says something about like the social conditions. Could it be social conditions like, I don't know, seeing visible gay characters in their movies? Gay characters like the one you played, Michael Knowles. So let's have a look at this video.
Did you know that like everybody is gay now? Did you know like every single person, not just every single person in the country, that's not quite true, but Gen Z and the people coming after them are super duper gay, and all the other like LBT, all of them. I'm not denying that there is some potentially natural basis for sexual desires and things. You know, human beings are complicated. It's a fallen world. Everyone's got some strange sort of aspects to their psyche, and especially sex is so important to human nature. Clearly, there is some kind of social, philosophical, psychological, spiritual factor going on here. And I pointed out, not to castigate anything or anyone, just to point out the conservatives were right. When the conservatives said this is a slippery slope and, you know, these kinds of sexual ideologies are going to spread throughout the society, and then the libs said that's not true and that's ridiculous and what are you talking about? It was true. We were right. Society is never neutral. We live in society. We develop based on other people. Very few people in the history of the world have ever lived alone in the woods. We live in society, and the way that other people behave, the way that other people structure their desires even, are going to affect everyone else.
So although he might not come out and say it, obviously more gay people is a bad thing to conservatives, he's also saying there, while he admits it could be just like a more natural progression, he's saying it is influenced by society, by psychological things, and I guess he's talking about by media and what people see, and what often conservatives believe is people aren't actually gay. He talks about like ideology there. He thinks that people are brainwashed by culture, by left-wing people, into thinking they're gay or to thinking they're transgender. They always talk about gender ideology being taught to confuse your kids. So I think that's what he's getting at there. Why it's so funny is that he's talking about like the normalization of LGBT relationships or seeing them in public and stuff, but he's been a part of that as well. So he's railing against something that he was happy enough to do when he actually went to university making this student film where he played this explicitly gay main character who got into a gay sexual relationship as well. So on this issue in particular, I'm just thinking like, Michael, if you feel so strongly about this type of thing, and so much of his content, if you type in Michael Knowles LGBT, he's just talking trash about the LGBT community, roasting pride adverts and things that depict gay relationships, and he's literally starred in a student film which also had an explicitly gay, visible relationship. So the student film is called The House of Shades, and it was uploaded on a YouTube channel called Kiru48 10 years ago. And just to go into Michael Knowles' background a bit from Wikipedia, so Knowles began training as an actor within the Stella Adler Studio of Acting as part of its Advanced Teen Conservatory. He graduated with a BA in History and Italian from Yale, where he produced the first English rendering of Machiavelli's play Andrea in 2012. He was raised in the Catholic faith by his family, but fell away during adolescence. At Yale, he experienced a reconversion to the church, spurred at first by ontological arguments. And before graduating from Yale University, Knowles participated in 2 web series, Never Do Business with Friends and Survive. Upon graduation, Knowles trained with Wynn Handman at his acting studio in New York and appeared in various web series, films, and television shows. In 2012, Knowles appeared in the student film House of Shades. He joined the Daily Wire in 2016 because he was actually friends with Andrew Klavan's son, who he'd worked with on theatre productions in Yale. And I've shown this before on his filmography. Most of it is like student films. He was an extra on The Nick as well. It's probably the most famous thing he's done. But if you go onto the House of Shades IMDb page, it says the interconnected relationships of a group of college students and the student-run nightclub cabaret they call home. And then Michael Knowles plays Gavin. And I think now we should just get into the film. What I'm going to do is I'm going to commentate on the scenes, talk about what's happening on screen. Like I said, a lot of licensed music playing throughout the whole movie, so I can't show you a few clips, and then hopefully later on in the movie, I can start showing you a couple clips, so let's get this started. So the film begins with Michael Knowles saying he broke up with his girlfriend, and then he talks about inviting a student athlete man to something, which we will find out about later. He then opens the door in a towel and has an awkward conversation with someone asking him to sign something to do with something like sexual liberty. He quickly signs it and then goes to the shower. The film then cuts to another guy's bedroom who's also not wearing a shirt with a rose on his pillow. Is this the student athlete that Michael Knowles' character Gavin was talking about? He also finds a ticket and an address for admitting one person to something mysterious. Now, this same girl with the petition rushes into this guy's room and shows him that she has enough signatures on her petition, with now 200 people apparently crying out for change. In the way she describes it, the petition is for punishing parties and hookups on campus. She also finds the note on the guy's pillow, and she says it's basically an invitation to some sort of hookup party. But then she says to him that he should be a spy for her cause and try and help to end this club that promotes this casual sex. The guy, who we later find out is called Dusty, is initially hesitant and he questions the morality of it.
You have to go. This is it. This is all we need to win the fight. This is proof of what our campus has become. You should go, you should take lots of pictures, and...
Wait. You want me to be a spy?
Actually, that's a better idea.
Doesn't any of this seem wrong to you?
No, because our cause is so right.
And then it's left up to the viewer. Does Dusty agree to be a spy? Does he really want to do this, or is he just going to go along for the ride? So then it cuts to the club and it's playing a lot of licensed music, which I can't show you. And it turns out Michael Knowles' character Gavin invited this guy, and he's also the bartender at this club. They make small talk while he served the drink. Dusty asks Gavin if he owns the bar, and Michael Knowles' character Gavin says it belongs to all members who pay an equal fee. This movie already sounds pretty woke. Is this communism they're talking about? So another girl called Val then comes over to the bar, starts flirting with Dusty and feeding him shots, while Michael Knowles' character walks away. Dusty then becomes drunk with Val, and Gavin returns, and Gavin says to Dusty that this place is a house of pleasure, essentially a brothel on campus, and says if sex is what you're after, you can find it here. Gavin says it's a sanctuary where you can love who you want, before Val takes Dusty off, seemingly cock-blocking Gavin. It cuts to a new scene while a Kanye West song plays, and a new girl comes up to Michael at the bar. They talk about Valerie dancing with Dusty, and Gavin says that she was allowed to have her fun for the time being before he drinks some more. Gavin then comes over and steals Dusty's dance with Val, before Dusty, in a drunken state, then collapses on Gavin and Val leaves. Gavin and Dusty then walk back to Dusty's apartment. Gavin then jokes about stalking Dusty, which he kind of has, but all the info he actually knows is because Dusty dropped his wallet and Gavin found it.
You're 5'10", 152 pounds, from Bentonville, Arkansas, and you're deathly allergic to tree nuts. How am I doing?
You're stalking me.
What would you do if I said yes? You dropped it.
Thanks.
Gavin then boasts about a lot of stuff before Dusty admits to her you never have been drunk before the night at the brothel.
I never drank before tonight.
Oh. Really?
Yeah, I mean, not that much. I had like a beer every once in a while, you know, once.
Inhibition is so unbecoming.
I know, right? But it's not that simple. You just gotta do what you think is right.
How's that been working out for you?
He then invites Gavin back to his apartment. Gavin offers to leave before they kiss, before it quickly cuts to them after they've just had sex.
You afraid to go inside?
It's not that.
I can leave.
That was... Wow. Thanks. Have you not done it with men?
Mind if we don't get into that?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's not a lot, is it?
Now in bed together, talking about whether they are virgins or not, he gives Gavin a towel and they both get dressed awkwardly. Gavin offers Dusty his number and gives it to him.
You want my number?
Yeah, sure.
Gavin then leaves into the night and says,
That just happened.
it seems like whoever wrote this movie was taking inspiration from Joss Whedon and the MCU. Then we cut to like the next day where Gavin is with the girl from the bar. Gavin is pacing up and down, looking at his phone. They talk about how many new members have joined and all the opportunity this might bring them, but Gavin is distracted by the phone. Gavin reveals he hasn't been texted back by Dusty and is sad because it isn't validating.
You've been staring at your phone like a 16-year-old girl. Explain.
It's that boy from last night.
Obviously. And?
He hasn't texted me yet.
So? I never text first.
Exactly. Usually by now I get something. Hey, had a great time last night, if you're ever in the mood.
And you ignore it. I fail to see a problem here.
I don't know, it's nice to see.
Was he good?
Not exceptional.
Big? Kinky? Did he tear your clothes off?
I wish. He was actually really awkward. Sort of fumbling around. It was kind of sweet.
Yeah. Sounds like a virgin.
Oh.
Oh, God.
I got a text?
No!
I'm not afraid to go in there.
I'm just afraid you'll like it.
Rue, give me the phone.
So you can do what? You hooked up 8 hours ago. Texting now equals insecure and emotionally dependent. We are neither.
His virginity. You should have seen his face. Oh my God, this poor
Whatever.
kid.
It's not like you actually like the kid. Jesus Christ. You don't, right?
I'm allowed to.
No, you're not. And you don't. This is just post-virginizing guilt. You want my advice?
Could I stop you?
No. Find someone hotter.
But then Gavin gets a phone call that the cops have raided the brothel, and then it cuts to black.
Oh.
Calm down, calm down. Hello?
Is it Mr. October?
Cops raided the house.
What?
So the twist is Dusty betrayed Gavin, and was Dusty actually acting as a spy? Did he do all this to bust the brothel? Did he pretend to be drunk? Did he sleep with Gavin just to get insider information on the brothel, and then helped his other flatmate tell the cops what was going on, and then that's how it got raided? So I hope you enjoyed the look into the House of Shades. Now, I want to give a fair review to this. So I've watched like a fair few student films, mainly because my girlfriend actually hosted a student film festival at our university. And of course, you know, there's really limited budgets. I remember one of the films I watched was like a rip-off of like The Last of Us, and it was pretty bad, mainly because, you know, it's really trying to tell a story that's well beyond their means. But I did watch a really, really good comedy, which was like a parody of Doctor Strangelove, that I thought was like really, really good, really funny. I think it won the best film as well. So I feel like with student media, there is really like a massive kind of range of how good things can be. And this student film I watched was back in 2017, I believe. So 5 years after this Michael Knowles one came out. And again, I thought this one that won the award at the film festival I went to was really good. And I would say for this one, I'd say for a student film, it's not the worst thing ever in terms of the acting and the visuals, although I wouldn't say it's anything special. I wouldn't even say Michael Knowles gives a great performance, but I would say the story is just kind of weird, I guess, because it's not really saying anything. And I believe if Dusty is like this double agent, I don't think it's set up that well, because I feel like if I was meant to wrestle with the question whether or not he was infiltrating this brothel, rather than just going through with it out of curiosity, I think I would have had to have another scene with him wrestling about like the morality of it, rather than him just saying, you know, this might be bad, like spying on people is bad and stuff like that. So I know they have like a really short time, and I know it is a student film. I do think in storytelling, you kind of do have to set up certain things and certain themes. I guess it's trying to be like edgy in a way with all the talk about sex, and especially like gay sex, for a student film in like 2012, before gay marriage was even legal in America, for example. But at the same time, even as a student film, I don't think it's the best thing ever, although I do respect it for sort of tackling things that maybe you wouldn't in a student film because you want to be a bit more safe. So I would say overall, as student films go, it's not the worst film I've definitely seen, but I've definitely seen films that utilize the low budget, utilize, you know, what you have, and try and do something more than their means, because it felt like they were trying to go for something a bit bigger. I don't know if there was like a limited runtime. They had to fit it into 15 minutes, but I don't think they made the best use of time, because I don't really know what this film is trying to say. Like, if this woman at the start is meant to be like a villain, if Michael Knowles is meant to be a villain. I guess he comes off as like a bit of a bad guy because he like stalks new targets for his club and this brothel place on campus. But again, it's just a bit like confusing, the story. Like, I don't really understand like what they were trying to convey. If you guys in the comments have watched this, and if you guys are just taken away from what I've shown you, can you tell me what you got from it? Can you tell me if you think there's a deeper meaning here, or am I missing something? Or do you think it's compelling, or do you like the acting? Because I think generally it's all just pretty like generic and like student-y. And like I said, I've seen better student stuff, so I do think they could have done a better job. I'm not going to hate them too much because like they probably had no budget. I'd say because I'm an English person watching Americans, I probably think the acting is better from some of them. I think the girl in the ending scene, probably for me, with the best person in this. I'd say after that, Michael Knowles, and then the rest of them, I'd say the person with the petition is probably the worst. But again, student film, not really going to be too critical. But like I said, this is quite like an explicit thing for a student movie. And Michael Knowles in bed with another guy without their shirts on, in their underwear. Something I hadn't seen in a student movie before. Here's the problem, of course, now, right? So Michael Knowles is now fairly popular in conservative audiences. What would they say to this film? What would they say to this film in general? Oh, it's like woke propaganda at the least, or it's indoctrinating people in, I don't know, some sort of gay ideology, as Michael Knowles was kind of hinting at there. And if this became like a feature film, and Michael Knowles starred in it, and it came out today, like 2 hours long and stuff, how would conservatives react to it? Could Michael Knowles still be a conservative commentator if he starred in this role in 2022 or 2023 rather than 2012? Of course he couldn't, right? And Michael Knowles was comfortable enough to play this role. Michael Knowles was comfortable enough with his politics, was comfortable with his views on gay people and gay relationships and gay sex and stuff to play this character. But now it seems like Michael Knowles wouldn't be okay with any of this, or at least his public persona would not be okay with any of this. And most people in his audience wouldn't be okay with seeing this, and we actually have evidence of this. And recently in The Last of Us, episode 3, there was a gay relationship, and there actually was a scene of intimacy. And I would say it's not too much more explicit than the scene Michael Knowles was in. Of course, there is like more kissing, and there is more stuff going on between Bill and Frank, but at the end of the day, it is pretty much just two men in bed without shirts on, similar to what Michael Knowles did. But we had Michael Knowles' own boss, Ben Shapiro, freaking out about this episode. Now, he had like two dumb critiques. He was basically saying, well, zombie show about zombies, there was only like one zombie in this, so therefore it's a bad episode, filler episode. But also it's pretty clear throughout his entire review, his venom towards this episode is pretty much motivated by homophobia. He keeps talking about like it's Ron Swanson who loves to bang dudes, or it's like Brokeback Mountain.
And then we get to episode 3, and this, according to the media, is the single greatest episode of television. So the entire plot of the episode is that Ron Swanson, Nick Offerman, but he actually plays Ron Swanson, but Ron Swanson, who likes to nail dudes and lives in his basement and is a prepper, but also is gay. And it's complete with like sex scenes and the whole thing. Here's the problem with Brokeback Zombie Farm.
And if you saw like anti-SJW YouTubers as well, they were all saying it was Brokeback Mountain. And if you aren't homophobic, you're like, what's wrong with that? Brokeback Mountain, very critically acclaimed film, very good film, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger. What's the problem with something inspired by Brokeback Mountain? But of course, it's just a dog whistle. It's like Brokeback Mountain, about a relationship between two gay men, and that's bad. So this episode is bad because it's like Brokeback Mountain. Not that it's good, because to a normal person, if you said something was like Brokeback Mountain, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to watch something good then, and it might be about a gay relationship. But to conservatives, it's like, no, it's bad. It's woke propaganda because it has a gay relationship. So it's pretty clear whatever views Michael Knowles held in 2012 towards gay relationships, even if he still believed that, he could not express it publicly today because conservatives are so rabidly homophobic, like openly so. Like there was a time period, I think in the 2010s, where you couldn't be as openly gay as they're being now as part of this whole culture war against supposed groomers. And Michael Knowles is very much a part of that culture war. And although Michael Knowles might not be grifting about every political position he has, I do find it interesting how a guy in his early 20s can be perfectly okay with depicting a gay relationship explicitly on screen for lots of people to watch, only by the time he hits his 30s, 10 years later, to just be like rabidly homophobic and not be okay with it. Because in that sense, at least, I can't believe he's evolved his position enough that he's disgusted by what he did in his early 20s. He's probably just saying it to fit into the club. Now, that doesn't discount what he said about transgender people. That can be a whole separate issue, but it's pretty clear he was comfortable enough to depict this relationship. And it's the same sort of relationship. If he saw that in a Marvel movie today, if he saw that in most things, and like as Ben Shapiro saw it in Last of Us, they hate it. They call it woke propaganda. They only focus on the sexual part of it because that's all they think about when it comes to gay relationships. So it's pretty clear they would not accept Michael Knowles starring in something like this today. And like I said, if 30-year-old Michael Knowles starred in this, even if it was like a big budget film, even if like Dusty was played by like, I don't know, Tom Holland or something, he would absolutely be cancelled and ran out of the Daily Wire. So a lot of conservative unity is in strength. And as you see a lot of the American right and also the British right, they often do not fight against each other. They all become unified on certain issues. So that's why you can see a shift with how much they focus on transgender people these days, or how much they started focusing on critical race theory. And it's basically all a united front because they're using it to attack the left. And there is no room for someone to be like, well, I disagree with you here. Ben Shapiro thinks gay relationships are like sinful, immoral. If Michael Knowles came out and said, I don't think that, then he would be cancelled by the right. And he wouldn't say that. He knows how much he would be attacked by the right for saying this. But the evidence is pretty clear there that Michael Knowles wasn't always like a crazy homophobe. And I'm not saying you can't be a conservative who plays this type of role. But what I am saying is, for someone who has so many videos talking about how crazy it is that adverts have gay couples and talks about, you know, this woke ideology, either like gay ideology or gender ideology, for him to star in a student film where he plays a gay character who has sex with a man, I think just says it all about how much conservatives are willing to sell out all their beliefs for a paycheck. To my knowledge, Michael Knowles hasn't actually commented on the student film and its like re-emergence, but I'd be interested on what he'd actually have to say about this. He'd probably just deflect and say, well, as an actor, I just do what the role says, and I'm happy to get into the minds of these characters who are nothing like me. But like I said, when the conservative culture war is all about trying to erase the LGBT community from public life, which he's a part of, I would find that answer very, very lacking. But anyway, let me know what you guys thought of the student film. Let me know what you think about all of this. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.